Welcome back. All right, news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Friday, April the 11th. Also previewing tonight's action, the final Friday in the regular season. We've got 5 games tonight. So busier than Fridays were, say, 3 months ago, as the schedule's a little more balanced right now than it was 3 months ago. So we'll start at the top of the board. Oliver Ekman-Larsson is out for tomorrow's game against Montreal. So Toronto, it looks like they're going to play a player short. They're going to play with 5 defensemen against the Montreal Canadiens. So there are salary cap reasons why a team might have to play a player short. It does happen. I think the most we've seen, and this was during the height of the flat cap, I think we saw a team play with 2 players short. I want to say Vegas did it at one point. But either way, Toronto's going to be shorthanded by 1 player tomorrow against Montreal Canadiens. Brock Besser was asked about whether or not he would be returning to Vancouver, and he made it on, and this has been the obvious answer, that it's unlikely at this point in time that he will be making a return to the Vancouver Canucks next season. An absolute shame that Brock Besser's time in Vancouver is winding down like this. I'm wearing my Besser jersey, well, one of my Besser jerseys. It has been interesting to see this core come in and watch as one after the next is out. And in the event that Besser just leaves as an unrestricted free agent, it's going to be a shame to see him leave and Vancouver not get any assets back with his exit. He's had a tough season, and I think a fresh start somewhere would be good for him. And we'll see where he ends up next season. But for Brock Besser, I think he's been a good player for the Canucks for a very long time. And it's a shame that he's on his way out, but it definitely looks like that's the case. The Montreal Canadiens can clinch a playoff spot with a regulation win tonight. So that's all they have to do, just win in regulation against Ottawa, and they've clinched themselves a playoff spot. So there's definitely some excitement about that game against the Sens. Now, the Edmonton Oilers can clinch. They do not have to win. All they need to do is get a point in tonight's game against the Sharks, or have the Flames lose in any fashion. So they're 1 point away from clinching a playoff spot. The Edmonton Oilers definitely headed there and very likely to be third, but still with visions of catching second place Los Angeles. The Minnesota Wild can also clinch playoffs with a win tonight against those Calgary Flames. So these games could be kind of fun. We could see some really good, almost playoff level action from these teams tonight. The Minnesota Wild, now that they've got Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek back, that helps a lot. They're not 100% healthy, but they're about as close as I can remember in a long time. So, bad news for Calgary, good news for Minnesota and for their fans, and all they need to do is win. That's it. Doesn't matter when either. It doesn't matter if it's regulation, shootout, overtime, any kind of victory, and Minnesota clinches themselves a playoff spot. And it would mean that only St. Louis would be left as a team that has yet to clinch. Connor Hellebuyck became the 7th goaltender in National Hockey League history to record a 45-win season. Hellebuyck is on his way to the Vezina. He could very well be on his way to the Hart Trophy. It is interesting, though, looking at previous Vezina winners and where their team ended up when it comes to playoffs. I can absolutely do up a video on that, because it is interesting to look and see when it comes to goaltenders, and when the goaltender's that important, how far does that team go in the playoffs. And so for the Winnipeg Jets, this is the year. If they're going to do it, it kind of has to be this year. They've been cruising along at the top of the league the whole season, and it definitely looks like they're going to be President's Trophy winners, so yeah, we'll see. The Winnipeg Jets statement win last night over Dallas. Hellebuyck didn't have to do as much work as the goaltender in the Dallas net had to, and he looked excellent when he did get that work. So Hellebuyck on a path towards one of the best seasons we've ever seen. If he ends up with more than 45 wins, and if he can bring his goals against average to below 2, and right now it's 2.02, he would be the first one to do so since Bernie Parent with the Flyers in the mid-'70s. So it's been a while since we saw a goaltender do what we're seeing right now from Connor Hellebuyck. All right, and I'm honestly, I'm kind of surprised that Hasek never did, but I know he never had that many wins. I remember him having the below 2 goals against average, and just how he dragged teams to the playoffs. Buffalo, at least once or twice there, those Buffalo teams were barely playoff teams, but Hasek made them better. All right, so we'll get into tonight's preview now. As I mentioned before, 5 games tonight in the National Hockey League. which is the smallest amount of games we have any night from now until the end of the regular season, and the regular season ends next Thursday. So we have 3 games starting at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, 1 2.5 hours later, and 1 3 hours after that. So these are nicely spread out. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start, the Montreal Canadiens in Ottawa against the Sens. Both of these teams are 6-3-1 in their last 10. For Montreal, they're only 3 points behind Ottawa. So not only is it a matter of trying to clinch first place, or trying to clinch a playoff spot, but they're trying to catch the number 1 wild card Ottawa Senators. Ottawa now 6 points behind Florida. Highly unlikely they catch Florida, but they do have to worry about Montreal, who are just over their shoulder. And we could get Toronto-Montreal in the first round if Ottawa did lose in regulation tonight, and then, if Montreal has some good fortune after this, and if Ottawa has any struggles. And I'm just going to say, I think a Montreal-Toronto first-round series would probably be pretty fun, too. I am still rooting for the Battle of Ontario, though. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start, the Detroit Red Wings in Tampa against the Lightning. Detroit 4-5-1 in their last 10, and they have to win. And they have to hope Montreal loses in regulation here. 8 points back of a playoff spot are the Detroit Red Wings. Tampa Bay 5-3-2 in their last 10 games, and they're 3 points behind Toronto for first place in the division. So Tampa Bay will not have given up on getting first place in the division. This is where I point out, too, though, that teams and players seem to be a lot less concerned with where a team finishes in the standings than we as fans are concerned with where a team's going to finish in the standings, outside of making the playoffs. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start, Pittsburgh in New Jersey against the Devils. Pittsburgh 4-4-2 over their last 10 and mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. New Jersey 5-3-2 in their last 10, and they are third in the Metro. And they're not going to move from third in the Metro. Not moving up, not moving down. That's their spot. 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific start. San Jose in Edmonton against the Oilers. San Jose 2-6-2 in their last 10. Clearly eliminated from playoff contention. The Oilers 5-4-1 in their last 10 games, and they're 4 points back of LA for that second spot in the division, which I would imagine they would covet at least a little bit, because going to LA and winning games is very, very difficult at this point in time. 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific start, the Minnesota Wild in Calgary against the Flames. Minnesota 4-4-2 in their last 10. They are tied with St. Louis in that final wild card spot, whereas Calgary 5-3-2 in their last 10 and 5 points back of a playoff spot. So their playoff lives are just hanging. They're barely still in this. And so Calgary needs a win tonight, and they need to hope that Minnesota loses and St. Louis loses out from here, and that they have that chance to jump up. I don't think it's going to happen, but if they're going to have any hope, they have to win this game tonight against the Minnesota Wild. So there you go. Let me know your picks in the comment section below for tonight's games. Let me also know your thoughts on items on the board, including Besser likely having played will likely have played his last game as a Canuck when this regular season is done. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.